Most of this west side was considered third district at one time, and west side was a little further. Fifth Ward was kind of English Avenue. With the new demographics, I think it's the fifth district with the county, but anyway, it's west side, which we say is the best side. It is the original west side, in that west of the Peachtree Ridge, as the water would flow after a rain, comes west, so we claim the west side. That would have been an original community, which we say we are, which would have been a community referred to as Lightning, and then Vine City. With the growth and development of Atlanta, Vine City is remaining, but Lightning has been eradicated, eliminated, gone but not forgotten. And in the footprints of where the Lightning community was is the World Congress Center, State Farm Arena, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and then across the street, Northside Drive is Vine City. I grew up in the Vine City community, and I attended Berean Junior Academy Elementary School, which was at 105 Ashby Street. Now it's a church. One of my classmates is the minister there of the church, but anyway, it was elementary school. And I attended Booker T. Washington High School, and I attended and graduated from Morris Brown College. I took classes at Clark. Believe it or not, an entrepreneurship class under Dr. Cole in entrepreneurship. And seminars at ITC on the preparation of the West Side welcoming the Olympics at ITC. Chestnut Street, and that we lived on Chestnut Place, which is now J.P. Brawley. Ashby Street, which is now Joseph Eccles Lowry. Simpson, which is now Joseph Boone. Going further north in the English Avenue area, Donald Lee Hollowell, which was Bankhead Highway, named after a distinguished Mississippi senator or a famous actress by the name of Bankhead. The culture was a kind of a do for self. The culture was, this is what it is, and we'll make the best of what it is. As someone mentioned about entrepreneurship, we didn't have that big word to work with, but everybody had a side something, a side job or something. And there were people who cut hair, there were people who fixed automobiles. And believe it or not, there was somebody who made cemetery vaults on Jones Avenue. There was a dealership that sold, if you can imagine, Pontiacs and Buicks, right there across the street from where Church of Christ is located. There was someone that hauled bales of cotton, not the little thing, but to places where it would be milled, the heavy tons of it. And his office was on at the corner of Kennedy and Sunset. There was someone that did cartage, which is another form of hauling heavy, bulky like things. And I think they lived on the corner of Griffin and Magnolia. That was a Wilson taxi cab place. So in terms of industry, that was the transit industry. You had Wilson Taxi, you had Quick Taxi, you had Quicker Taxi, you had Westside Taxi, but all of them were in the business. This was long before, what's the name of our shared riding? Huh? Not Mara. I'll get to that in a second, but before Uber, yes. You had a Clark graduate. That was one of the highest ranking individuals with Coca-Cola to graduate from Clark. And you have another Clark person on that board has a Mercedes-Benz franchise. And in that transformation, which I mentioned living on Chestnut Street, and I say this here, class will be dismissed, you had a Dr. J.P. Brawley, who was instrumental in moving Clark from the south side of Atlanta to its present location. And if you understand leadership, Dr. Brawley, being president of a college, writing a couple of books, and coming back to the classroom, humbling himself to whoever the new leadership was. That's rare. You know, when you leave, you like to leave your mark to show you how, make them show how much they miss you. But that he did, and for that, Nana's a beneficiary. You mentioned the businesses right there, that intersection where Cornelius Henderson building is. Clark graduate, at best I understand. His church used to be across the street from Tiger Flowers Mansion on Simpson wasn't there at the same time. But at that location was Yates and Milton drugstore. He had a chain of drugstores. And right there was the meeting point where everybody would meet coming home, coming weekend, right on that corner, right there. And Yates was the druggist, and Milton was the president of Citizen and Trust Bank, and his wife was a daughter of the David T. Howard High School, you heard of, and in their lineage is the Frederick Douglass family. Prominent leaders, well, we're blessed with all kinds of leaders, and there was someone who worked with Dr. King who referred to everybody as a leader, and we appreciated that. That was Reverend Orange, and he addressed everybody, how you doing, leader? That was inspiring to people who thought not to be even a good follower, your leader. But in terms of transportation, along what I mentioned, Kennedy Street and English Avenue, along Simpson, which is now Boone, and along Magnolia Street, you had trolley cars on a track. And they would come almost to the heart of the community and turn around and go back out, because that was tremendous ridership for people who worked and served the downtown area. For example, I'll start with our beloved Magnolia Street. Magnolia Street starts at Marietta Street, but it has been subdivided to accommodate the growth of the World Congress Center. But we affectionately say Magnolia Street that goes to Marietta Street is Lower Magnolia Street. Upper Magnolia Street is Andrew Young Boulevard. That street still goes under there. If you were going east on Magnolia Street, when you cross Northside Drive, it says Home Depot's backyard. You can drive under there and still meander and come out on Marietta Street. Magnolia Street was a street where the streetcars would come. It would come up to Griffin Street, and if you notice, the street kind of turns at an angle when it gets to Griffin Street. That's because the trolleys would turn around. If you were coming west on Kennedy Street, which is now Cameron Alexander. When you get to English Avenue, there's a building there, and the street kind of turns at an angle there for the trolley to turn around and come back to town. And along Simpson was the trolley, and it was referred to as the 19 River. As a kid, I never understood why it was 19 River. I hadn't seen a river, but it went all the way out to the Chattahoochee River, the 19 River. And as it relates to transportation, I mentioned the taxis and I mentioned the trolleys. The owner of Atlanta Transit Company was a Mr. Peters. And going to the other side of town at the corner of Ponce de Leon and Piedmont is the Peters Mansion. They call it the Mansion Restaurant and the Mansion Condominiums, and they have the conference room that they told our community we could come there and for meetings, but that was named after the owner of the Atlanta Transit Company, Peter Street. I mentioned once that I cannot think of a time that my father didn't have 3 jobs.
Really?
To be able to navigate or for family members or what to at least have some access to opportunity. He needed all 3 of those incomes. And he found a way to work with or for people or families that he thought maybe someday could help his family. I didn't understand it at that time, but he would, as a fellow said, my father drugged me. Yeah, he drugged me everywhere he went. He would have me working with him, and I do remember wages at that time, quite common, was $1.50 an hour. When I lived on the west side, there were 4 public housing projects. Atlanta University Homes, John Hope Homes, named after the president of Atlanta University. There was Herndon Homes, named after a resident of Vine City, Alonzo Herndon, who was Atlanta's first black millionaire. And you had John Egan Homes. I think he was a resident over off of Ponce de Leon. And you had Techwood Homes next to Georgia Tech. The idea and the thinking was being so close to these great oases of education, Atlanta wouldn't miss the boat. And to a great extent, it hasn't missed the boat in education. We are becoming Silicon Valley the second. We are the big peach, and we're at the crossroads now of being a big city or a big town. This is where preservation intersect with progress. I have a picture of the Atlanta Stadium and the Georgia Dome Stadium from an aerial view. And I refer to them as the new Atlanta. And where you have, with the stadiums, you have tailgating and you have the ultimate tailgating. That's where we will remove the 2 old, nothing wrong with them. It's just taking it to another level. And everybody doesn't understand the new levels and their place in it. So, as we say about Atlanta, we got to make Atlanta also good for Atlantans. How we do it, we need help from our persons from Clark Atlanta University, which I was a student, and the transformation of Clark becoming Clark Atlanta University. You had the owner of a bus company that lived on the west side. Some of them, before I was here, but I remember they had Dixie Hill Bus Company. When the transit stopped at Ashby Street, get a transfer for a nickel, and it would take you to Hunter Hills or Dixie Hills and turn around. That was the Cox family. I think they had the funeral home in Auburn as well. You had distinguished photographers on the West Side. It's taken the lead. No other major city has an African-American mayor for 50 years. Now, one of those visionary geniuses that lived in our neighborhood, when he met his untimely death, people rioted, broke windows, set fires in 29 cities, 25 states. And there were those who were saying, people die every day, but what was so special about this one? This is 50 years later now. That person, as I say, since I'm part of the Vine City Civic Association, and I used to sit next to Dr. King's father in economic opportunity. So where's economic opportunity? But anyway, 50 years later, we say that a person left this driveway in our community, went to another city, and gave his life to a profession he had nothing to do with. These were not his fraternity members, sanitation workers. Now, their very high-ranking sanitation worker's daughter, a very high-ranking person right here in Atlanta University community, which will remain anonymous, benefited from that. You have Miss Oprah Winfrey. I think she spent the night at Mrs. King's home, and she said, for what your husband did for my career, you should be living in a much better setting. And she bought Mrs. King a condo in Buckhead. When you had a president of these United States at the inauguration, which I happened to have been there, I don't know why, said, I would not be here were it not for that Baptist minister in Georgia. The Bronner family was on the West Side, as well as on Auburn. You had a distinguished prize fighter. That was before my time, of course. He was the Muhammad Ali of his day, by the name of Theodore Flowers, better known as Tiger Flowers. He had a mansion at the corner of Flowers and Joseph Boone, across from Herndon Elementary School. If you can imagine, an African American that had a Rolls Royce in the 20s, living on Simpson, which is now Joseph Boone, that Dr. King referred to Joseph Boone, which was Simpson Road. I found it to be quite important. As I listened to someone today mention the clock towers at Clark, at Morehouse, at Morris Brown, and there was a bell that used to ring at E.R. Carter Elementary School at 12 o'clock every Wednesday. They said, if I could hear that bell or see that clock, there is no way I would be without an education in this community. There were at least a couple of private schools in the area, 3 or more private schools. There was a lady who was considered a genius in music that taught lessons, but of course she didn't dress like a genius, and then geniuses don't have to dress like geniuses. And I remember someone was remarking, my sister was taking music, and they said, you want me to take music from that lady that wears that rag around her head? And they said, look, you're not going for what she has on her head. You're going for what she has in her head. Musical genius. We were greatly influenced by churches, and they often say we had churches on every corner, and our behavior should be a little bit better than it is sometimes. And trying to learn a little about real estate development, a little real estate redevelopment. One of the things I do remember in building neighborhoods, a person mentioned that people are kind of influenced to live near where there are churches, even though they don't go. They feel that it's kind of it's safer. Now you had the Berean Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is at the corner of Palmetto and now Lowry. You had the Bethlehem Church, which was on M.L. King, next to where Pascal's was. And that founder founded a national holiness organization that today people come from all over the country annually, rekindling their spirits to carry out the mission of the church. You had Union Baptist Church, which was on Mason Turner, across from E.R. Carter School, which is now Kips, and across from the Ashford Street MARTA station, which built their mega church, Atlanta's first black-owned mega church, on what is now Joseph Boone and Hightower. Someone mentioned, I don't know how true it is, that some of the same parishioners may have been part of the entertainment that was going on the previous night. But what we find is the value and the importance of entertainment. This was escape from the trauma, the challenge of working where you may not have received full respect. And I can relate that to pictures of entertainment place called the Royal Peacock that was on Auburn Avenue. There was an entertainer I wanted to see, and I saved up and I went to see. There I was, ready to buy my ticket. I was at 8 o'clock. They told me this first show don't start until 10:30. First show, and then it's going to have a second show after midnight. Now, the same people who did work and were on their feet 6, 7, 8 hours, caught the bus, were there, freshened up to go to see the first and second. Now, it must have given them some release from the stress and pressure. And having worked for the owner and manager of the Magnolia Ballroom and having a friend at the Royal Peacock, I got a chance to see a little up close as to who are these people that they have these silk-looking suits and a process, and people just can't stay in their seats once they come to the stage. What's their magic? What's their secret sauce? But I got a chance to see some of that.